Dani Olmo got injured yesterday during Barcelona's win, so let's break down what happened. As of now, I haven't seen an official report from Barcelona, but several sites are reporting that he dislocated his shoulder and will be out for 3 weeks. And that's a little strange. The dislocation is defined as a bone coming out of its articular surface. In other words, the bone is not in its place. Our shoulder joint is composed of 3 bones. The humerus, which is our arm bone, fits into a socket in the shoulder blade known as the scapula, and in the front you have the clavicle, the collarbone. Now, even though the shoulder joint is made of 3 bones, when we talk about a dislocation, we're usually referring to the humerus coming out of the scapula. Of all the dislocations in our body, the shoulder is the joint that dislocates most often, and it accounts for a total of 50% of all dislocations. By the way, this happens because the humerus sits in a relatively shallow socket within the scapula, which allows for a lot of movement but provides little stability. Shoulder dislocations usually occur due to an arm pull, a tackle, or a fall, which is what happened to Olmo right after he took a shot. The vast majority of these dislocations, about 95% of them, are anterior dislocations. This means the arm bone pops out toward the front, away from the scapula. The big problem with dislocations, aside from the immense pain they cause, is the collateral damage that occurs when the shoulder pops out of place. The shoulder capsule, ligaments, cartilage, nerves, or even fractures. 50% of dislocations are accompanied by these additional injuries. But beyond the damage to surrounding tissues, 20% of athletes will dislocate that same shoulder again. This can be due to weakness or because of laxity in the ligaments that are meant to stabilize the shoulder. The length of the recovery period depends on the severity of the injuries and the symptoms, and it's usually 2 to 3 months. That's why the report of just 3 weeks is a bit strange. But I have 2 reasons why I think 3 weeks is actually a realistic time frame for Olmo to return to the pitch. The first is that he didn't actually dislocate his shoulder, but rather his AC joint, the acromioclavicular joint, which is located right up here in the front. This would make sense since he's dislocated this joint in the past, but it doesn't quite fit because he's holding his shoulder. Because of that, I don't think that's it. And that brings me to the second reason, which is that Olmo didn't suffer a full dislocation, but rather a subluxation, meaning a partial dislocation of the joint, which then quickly returned to its place. This seems much more likely to me, especially since, while it's a bit hard to see, it looks like his shoulder is in place and it doesn't seem like they had to reduce it on the field. So it's very likely that during that fall with an outstretched hand, Olmo suffered a subluxation and it immediately popped back into place. A shoulder dislocation is a relatively rare injury in soccer, accounting for only about 2% of all injuries in the sport. So a shoulder dislocation or subluxation doesn't mean the season is over, and it's very plausible that we'll see him return within 3 weeks. Best of luck to him.